Welcome back to the City Ramble on YouTube with me, Adam Booker. Adam, good summer. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Saw you. Came over
You did see me.
to
Yeah, I saw
Manchester.
you as well. You weren't just sort of stood in the bushes
Yes. No.
stalking me.
Came and hung out in the great town of Stockport,
You
the great
did.
village of Stockport.
Whoa, whoa. We are
Although I learned biggest town in the UK to not have city status, so I
I'm pretty
suppose
sure.
village isn't doing it justice.
Yeah. Maybe need fact checking there, but I'm pretty sure. At least that's what we're told as us loyal Stopfordians. The great home of course, Phil Foden, Joe Donovan, and yours truly. Yeah, it was good. It was good. We're back into the swing of things. Topic of today's video, we've got loads of questions from the audience, basically. If you've listened to the podcast before, you'll know Coffee Corner is a regular series that we do. We get listener questions. This is just basically from our Discord channel. So if you aren't, make sure to be getting involved in that. The link is in the description. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well. We're aiming for 5k subscribers before the start of the Premier League season, which I think it's less than 3 weeks away. It comes around quick, doesn't it? That big break we had has suddenly sort of disappeared and the players are back in training and we've got to start thinking about football again.
Yeah, the Club World Cup didn't help because we had a feast of football for a couple of weeks out of nowhere, and of course here in the States, the sport, I won't name the sport. The sport is continuing to be played here in the States, so it never stops for me. But yeah, the Premier League weekend always starts the weekend of my birthday, so just a lot happening all at once.
Absolutely. Right, well, we'll get into the questions then. The first one isn't from you, it's from a different Adam B. But they ask, nice and simple, who will be City's best summer signing? Now, as we're recording this, we have just had, I guess you can call it City's fifth summer signing because poor Marcus Bettinelli is getting left out of quite a few conversations. A lot of people saying City have completed their fourth summer signing. That's wrong. We've had five. So we've got to pick from Ryan Shirky, Tajani Reinders, Ryan Aït-Nouri, all three of which we have seen already, obviously Marcus Bettinelli, and then more recently James Trafford. A decent crop there, right across the field, right across the positions. City's best summer signing, this time in 12 months, well, maybe 10 months or so. Who do you reckon we'll be saying?
I think there's a short-term answer and there's a long-term answer. I think
Nice.
in the short term, the summer signing that best helps City get back to competing for titles now is Tijani Reinders.
Nice.
I think he is, a Borussia Dortmund Ilkay Gundogan type player. He's going to be so useful for City at both ends of the pitch in midfield. He's going to give you a bit more cut and thrust from midfield than you had last season when it was, the Unks, Gundogan and Kovacic a bit more. And I think his versatility in midfield gives you so many options that he could play alongside Rodri and maybe play Shirky ahead of them or Phil Foden ahead of them, or he can play in a three, with Bernardo Silva and Rodri or Nico Gonzalez and Rodri, and then he himself can have a bit more freedom. And I think his versatility is going to be extremely useful. Long term, I think, and we are recording this the day that James Trafford has officially signed with City. I think if James Trafford goes on to be the player that many believe he will be, and I think from what we've heard from the club, they see him as the future number one at England. If he goes on to be the future England number one, replaces Ederson, and is the mainstay goalkeeper for a decade, I think we'll look back on that signing from this summer as the signing of this summer.
Interesting. Nice variety, because I'm actually going to say somebody different. I'm going to say one of the Ryans. I'm going to go Ryan Aït-Nouri, actually. It could very easily be Ryan Shirky, let's be honest. He's obviously got the quality and he's got the potential to stand on his head and almost assume, not necessarily exactly the same, but take over from Kevin De Bruyne in that role. But I feel like maybe just predicting what might happen, he'll start a few games on the bench. He'll be eased into it. He's still very young, even though we've known about him for a good number of years. I'm going Ryan Aït-Nouri. I think it's twofold, possibly threefold, two and a half fold. You've got, first of all, a brand new left back coming in. And I mean, how long has it been since City actually played with a proper left back? We've had, ones that have come in and out, that who shall not be named amongst them. Then you've had centre backs playing there. You've had right backs or right-footed full backs playing on that left-hand side and inverting. No, this is a left back, an out and out, up and down, side to side left back, and I feel like that could be transformative to City's game. But I also feel like one thing, probably since the Cancelo days when he was inverting on that side, City have just lacked, or City's left winger in particular, has just lacked somebody in that position to help them out, overlap. You remember the Mark Cucurella saga? And we were like, it wouldn't be surprising if Jack Grealish would have literally paid out of his own pocket to get Cucurella in, because you could see how much his game would have improved. It is ironic that Grealish is probably going to leave the summer. City finally do get that left back, but I think for Marmoush and I think for Doku, whoever's playing on that left-hand side, the presence of Ait-Nouri, somebody else operating and occupying that space, giving defenders something to think about, that could be. But we kind of saw it at the Club World Cup. I thought Doku was excellent, and I think that could really help his game out, especially when it comes to sort of in terms of the sort of final third product and deciding what to do. I feel like Ryan Ait-Nouri could be great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's probably, for me, would be number 3 on that list after Trafford, and obviously Trafford is a long-term thing. Ait-Nouri is certainly going to have a bigger impact on this upcoming season than James Trafford is, but you're spot on that it's only going to benefit whoever's playing on the left wing, and it's almost a shame that Ryan Ait-Nouri is coming in at a time when we don't have Jack Grealish. Most likely won't have Jack Grealish there to benefit from it, because so often the complaints of Grealish was, well, he just turns inside and passes it to the fullback that's inverted or to the midfielder, and it's, we were crying out for someone to overlap him. But I think Ait-Nouri is going to give City a different dimension that they just haven't had, because even when Josko Gvardiol was doing Josko Gvardiol things down that flank, it was typically coming inside and inverting, and you think of that goal at the Bernabeu and all that kind of stuff. And I think he had a brace at Fulham cutting inside. So
could have had a penalty. Could have had a hat trick, sorry, if he was taking the penalty.
Right. Yeah, if he was a more selfish man. But I mean, it's a whole other dimension for City, and that's extremely exciting.
Speaking of Gvardiol, have you seen his new haircut? It's stunning. It's wonderful. The guy's gone up again.
Doing special ops training.
Yes.
But I believe he had a camo hat on in that, so I did not see his new haircut.
Well, you wouldn't see it anyway with the camo hat on. But no, he's got like somewhat kind of Jack Grealish, some might say Amos Murphy-esque, but he's got like a sort of really nice, he does it much better than me. He'll be absolutely surprised to nobody, but really nice flowing locks. And I mean, that guy just didn't need to get any better looking, really, did he? It's a shame. Before we move on to that, I should say we've done a video on this channel on James Trafford. Personally, I'm absolutely buzzing for him. I think it's the perfect outcome to have him coming on in alongside Ederson. I'd have backed him to make an impact if it had been alongside Ortega and those two battling for the number 1 spot. But I think, I've shared my opinion on that already. Question number 2 comes from 9 Burn. What would it take for Rodri to go to Real Madrid? Trades, money, etc., etc. Now, this is obviously on the back of what is now, I guess, an expired or an old news story we had earlier in the week that Real Madrid were looking to potentially submit an offer or submit a bid for Rodri this summer. There was talk about 100 million quid. He's got, I want to say, 2 summers left on his contract currently. There's now talk that a big contract offer is on the table from Manchester City, almost guessed sort of taking Kevin De Bruyne's wage or putting him up alongside Erling Haaland. He's 29, so he's obviously sort of towards the, you would say, maybe peak years of his career, just come back from an ACL. Real Madrid have had a long-term interest. I feel like without this contract offer, I'd be worried, but my fear has kind of tempered a little bit, and I feel like Rodri, for me, is probably going to play out the best years of his career still at City.
Yeah, I agree. And I think certainly if they lock him down to, an extended contract, especially on the wages that have been rumored, you can't really see him going anywhere else and getting that anywhere. Obviously, Real Madrid has the financial means to do that. And in terms of what it would take, I was sitting and thinking about this. What would I realistically accept as an offer? So City bought him for around £60 million, I believe.
Yeah, back in
So
2019, which was still, I think it might have even been like 65 or something like that. It was a lot of money.
yeah, and I would put his like market value at like 150 million pounds. That's what I would say.
Okay.
His
Is that including the 2 years left in his deal? Does that play a part of it or not?
I'm ignoring contract situation
Okay.
completely. Just flat out, what does he cost? In my head, I'm only accepting a profit of his market value. As
So
in, you need to
210 million or
go
something
to
like that.
like 200 million flat out to get him, which
Jeez.
no one's gonna do. So
That's interesting. I think Declan Rice went and Moises Caicedo went for £100 million, and who knows what happens in the future. Obviously, both of those players have years on Rodri in terms of I think it's like 6 or 7 years for the pair of them. I would say that you're talking about maybe double the player in terms of what they are now. So I think his market value is north of 200 quid, which means personally, I'd maybe go upwards of 250 million quid, which might happen, but it's
I
probably not
think
going to happen.
the only thing that knocks it down is we haven't really seen him post ACL. We've seen
True.
glimpses of it. He's 29. We haven't seen him post ACL. We don't know if he's going to be the exact same player. I mean, luckily, torn ACLs in 2025 aren't what they used to be.
Well,
It
it
used
could
to
be
be
the
a career
meniscus.
ender.
I think people have suggested could be the actual the proper issue with that injury.
Right. So I think we have to wait and see what this season holds because there's very much a world in which he recovers fully from the knee injury and he's back to his best self by, October or whatever. And that's a position where, you look at how long Sergi Busquets played in that position for Barcelona and players in the past, Casemiro did it till about 33 at a high level or 32 at a high level. So, you can absolutely still get three at a minimum good seasons out of Rodri. So, I mean, if the club are smart, your only Ballon d'Or winner, who at least, who won it when they were at City, should be locked down for the rest of his career, and whatever needs to be written down on the check gets written down.
Yeah, and I think it will be, to be fair. Yeah, sweet. In terms of a player who's probably more likely to leave Manchester City, question 3 comes from Ben. Will James McAtee stay at City? Now, this talk, it might have even been today, that City rejected a bid from Nottingham Forest worth 25 million quid for it's weird to say England under 21 captain. I think he's 23 years old, but he's just won the under 21 European Championship with England. Obviously, didn't necessarily get as many minutes as City fans maybe would have liked and himself would have liked last season, despite all of the issues City had. It looks, though, Adam, that he's going to leave, although I think Ben Jacobs reported that City will only sell for, I can't remember the figure, but it was, quite north of the 25 million quid that was bid. So, maybe there's a seed of doubt, but it feels like for me, James McAtee's time at City is done, which is a shame because, when he's played, I thought he looked good.
Yeah, I don't know, it feels almost contradictory for the club to be potentially asking for Cole Palmer type money, but also you look at James McAtee's role in the team in the last year, and I think if I'm any Premier League club or Bundesliga club, I know he was rumored to Bayer Leverkusen at one point. If I'm looking at the last season and I'm watching City at their lowest in a decade, and I'm watching them struggle as mightily as they struggled, and James McAtee still couldn't get 10 minutes off the bench through a lot of those stretches, I find it hard to believe that any club is going to go out and spend 40 million on him
Interesting.
and spend the kind of money that Cole Palmer or the City demanded for Cole Palmer. Now, obviously, when City demanded that money from Cole Palmer, we had no idea he was going to go on to be the world beater that he is now. But I think if the asking price is, 25 million or 30 million, that's maybe more realistic. But I think if City genuinely are keen on making a big profit on him, which any sale is a big profit. He's an academy player. I think they probably have to lower their standards a little bit when it comes to this transfer fee because.
Would you have accepted the 25 then?
Yeah.
I thought that was a laughable offer. I thought that was a horrendous offer.
It's not to devalue James McAtee because I genuinely think he's worth that amount of money. I just think that it's hilarious of City to ask this after the last season where I feel like I would have made an impact in some of those games, and James
But
McAtee
didn't
couldn't get on the
Guardiola
pitch.
admit? I can't remember when it was because he started towards the spring. He started like a couple of games. I think he played against Palace where we were all going, "This is one of the worst lineups in Pep's career," and then City turned it round and absolutely blitzed them. Then I think he started the game against Villa, which was a real sort of, in
Yeah.
my opinion, one of the best performances of that run in. And City got a late goal via Nunes, but were pretty good for the most part. I think Guardiola admitted at one point like he should have started more. So I think it's clear Guardiola
You said that
said
about
sort of
Calvin Phillips.
he said it about Calvin Phillips in a very condescending way.
Yeah.
As in like Calvin Phillips is a nice guy. I think he genuinely rated to a degree. I think it's clear. It was clear anyway that Guardiola wasn't a massive fan of McAtee, but probably should have given him more of an impact. I mean, the only thing I can say about the 25 million quid is he's out of contract next summer, so maybe that's why Forest have lowballed. But I honestly think 35 million pound or above should be par basically.
I get it. I see it from that side, especially considering that other than Cole Palmer, he's this generation's crown jewel of that of the City Academy, and it's an academy that is so highly thought of in football. Maybe the highest thought of academy in football outside of Spain, most likely. So I think you could see why they'd be asking that amount of money, but you can also see the flip side of you haven't paid anything to get him, so missing out on 5 to 7 million pounds to, you know, get him gone essentially if he's not in the plans doesn't seem like a crazy ask. But I think as anything, it's probably somewhere in between that they'll end up settling for.
Yeah. Buyback. I mean, for me, if they don't have a buyback in there, unless it significantly hinders the deal, as in like you're getting towards the end of the transfer window, and Forest are saying we're not budging, we're not having a buyback at all. It's either this or nothing, and they don't get a chance to sell him. For me, after the Cole Palmer situation, I think it's a necessity basically.
Yeah, and we see it with James Trafford because, as
Yeah.
far as I understand, they had a clause that it wasn't necessarily a buyback clause that made them, you know, something that they couldn't say no to, but they had a matching clause that any club tried to buy James Trafford. I think it was Newcastle in this case. City would match the offer and sort of have first dibs. I get it if that's what they want to do. I totally get it, and especially if he's going to move down the totem pole. Going to Chelsea for Cole Palmer wasn't necessarily a huge move down the totem pole. It's a club with similar ambitions to City, whereas
Well,
Forest,
ask Hugh Murray. Have you seen that clip of Hugh Murray when Palmer leaves Chelsea?
no.
It's sent. He was when he might have just been on his personal channel. Hugh Murray, friend of this very
Yes.
show, by the way. We do love Hugh, but he's going something along the lines of like, "Well done, Palmer. You've signed your career away, going to the worst possible club you could have picked out." And obviously, Chelsea fans throw it up. It's a bit like their Rory Jennings, Erling Haaland clip. That's
Yeah.
poor Hugh.
Yeah. But anyways, I think especially if McAtee is going down the totem pole where maybe Forest, maybe he sets the world alight at Forest and they try to sell him for double, triple a profit in 3 seasons time, and City need a midfielder in 3 seasons time, then City can, do the whole matching clause thing again. I see no reason to not have it. If you don't need it, you don't need it in the end, but to not have it seems negligent.
Hopefully, he doesn't set it alight at Forest because deforestation is already a big enough
That's very
problem
true.
as it is. Dark God asks, if I fly from the US to see Manchester City for the first time, what is the first thing I should do? Good job, Adam, you're here. You're American. You've been to City several times. You've got to go back a few years for the first time. The club and the city itself has changed then. But what would your
Massively, yeah.
first time tips be for a Manchester City fan coming over from wherever in the world, not just the States?
I think there's a lot of easy things you've got to hit. Do an Etihad Stadium tour. That's absolutely, you've got to do that. You got to see how the sausage gets made. Hopefully, there's no sausage when the dressing rooms are empty when you go in there. But you're making a face. You don't get the sausage in the dressing room joke.
I'm afraid not.
Well,
That
if
seems
the, if
like
the
it's.
players are in there, there is a chance you might accidentally see some sausage. But we'll move on. Hopefully this doesn't make the final cut of this video. You should go to the football museum, which to an American is our version of the NFL Hall of Fame or MLB Hall of Fame. It's got all sorts of cool football memorabilia and stories and exhibits.
The national one as well, so it's the main one in the country. Also,
unfortunately, it wasn't there when I was there most recently, which was a couple of weeks ago. But I have been there in the past where the crown that was put on Colin Bell's head to give him the nickname Colin the King was in that museum, which was very cool. That is not, I don't know if it got robbed, but it's not there any longer.
Hopefully not.
If you're an American going over there, you can go see the doctor. You can ride some public transportation around to get around very easily. But no, I mean, the cool thing about being there is you are within so much culture and football, especially football culture, within like, you take a train an hour in any direction, you can see about 5 professional stadiums. And yeah, Amos, what do you think?
And a lot of the time, you don't need to go searching for it either, You'll stumble into a pub, and unfortunately, being the split city it is, there might be Manchester United memorabilia, there might be City memorabilia. You might get talking to someone who's a supporter of whatever team. I think for match goers, it's always worth a trip into Mary D's because it's part of it is quintessentially Mancunian, and some great characters there. Those who frequent frequently, those who frequent less frequently, frequenting. There's plenty of music, sing songs and whatnot. Trying to think. Always worth getting pie and chips and gravy as well. That's a staple for match goers. Yeah, like you said, there's loads. There's absolutely loads. Classic football shirts is worth a bob around. Although, kind of gone off the boil a little bit. I know you said that last time you were over. Yeah, it used to be like a charity shop, or a thrift store for football. It's kind of just like a
Sports now.
Yeah, regular sports shop, which is get that bag, and if you want to sponsor us, you know where we are. Reminder, if you haven't already, if you want to ask us a question, make sure to get in the Discord channel, link in the description. Follow us on social media as well, so you can keep up to date. City Ramble or the City Ramble, depending on what platform it is. This might not mean a lot to you, but what's your meal deal of choice? I'm surprised I've not mentioned this before to you. Tesco meal deals, is that a concept that you're aware of?
No.
Goodness me. So
I mean, I can use educational guessing here to figure out what it is.
Go on then.
But I'm assuming that Tesco has actual like hot food. No.
Well, no.
Oh, so it's not like a little buffet at the grocery store where you get a deal. All right. So my educated
Although they
guess was
do
off.
some wonderful deli counters in Ireland. That's their sort of meal deal equivalent. But I'd say loads of shops do meal deals, but I'd say that the best one is Tesco. You have 3 categories. You have a drink, you have a snack, which is usually like a packet of crisps or maybe a chocolate bar or maybe like a pot of fruit or something. And you have like a main, and it's usually just like a sandwich or a pot of pasta or something like that. But they've gone up massively in price. They used to be £3 for all of that. And now I think it's like £4.50 or something like that. But still, they're famed for being really good value and, in some cases, really nice. And this is a really weird thing to explain, but it's like, I don't know, part of British culture to like judge people's meal deals, because you might have some who just have like really plain, boring stuff, and people who might go for madness. I think usually I would go for Tesco. Do a lovely like spicy bean and cheese, almost Mexican style wrap, packet salt and vinegar squares, and a Purdy's. Purdy's, again, probably gone right over your head. It's like a sparkling, energised drink anyway. Sam, there you go. Judge me. Well, Adam,
here's something.
You've not got
one thing I could not get that annoyed me to no end last time I was over there was electrolyte water.
Yeah.
Is that not I did see Liquid IV in Boots a lot.
Yes.
Like the packets, but I couldn't find like just already in a bottle basically liquid IV already made without having to actually pour the powder into any
Oh, you were
water.
saying it said you couldn't find it.
I couldn't. Yeah, I was trying
Oh,
because I had done quite a bit of drinking and needed
yeah,
electrolytes the following morning.
yeah. I seem to remember like there was a water brand that, to quote Micah Richards, burst onto the scene about 10 years ago, and that seems to market itself on being increased electrolytes compared to usual water bottles. But I don't
I
know.
do know that you guys do have more like minerals and
Yeah,
electrolytes in
possibly.
your water anyways.
Yeah.
We don't. We have ours is completely nothing. Ours is very hydrating, which we don't have to do the dehydration in Europe, Americans
I
being
mean, yeah, it's a
dehydrated
good.
in Europe discourse. But anyways, why don't we move on to literally anything else?
Yes, question 6, and it's an interesting one. It's back to the football. It's back to Manchester City talk, and it comes from Good Kev. This was via Discord as well. What do you think of Jed Spence at right back? They went on to sort of make the case for the I think he's 24-year-old, obviously at Tottenham, saying that in fact this is a bold shout from Good Kev, but said that they remind they remind them of a young Maicon, which interesting. Obviously, Maicon, once of this parish, of course, but still the Manchester City, not the City Ramble. That'd be pretty cool. Jed Spence. I think I mentioned on a video earlier this summer that when we were looking at sort of right back alternatives, for me, didn't really move the needle. Now that came with quite a bit of backlash. People saying that they really fancied him, they thought he was a great option. For me, I don't know what it is when I'm thinking about a City signing, and I think about it with pretty much everyone City have signed this summer. They might not necessarily be coming in and, well, you'd hope they immediately make the squad better. But for example, Ryan Shirky, like I said, might take a little bit of time to bed in. James Trafford is obviously going to be battling Edison for that number one spot. Some are more sort of looking towards the future, whereas Tajani Reinders, who's now 27, that's for the here and now. Jed Spence, for me, doesn't come in and necessarily improve that position on the pitch immediately, and I don't know long term if he would make it at City in 5 seasons time. I don't know if we're looking at him going, yeah, that was a great signing for the money that Tottenham would want as well. For me, there's just too many red flags.
That's the big thing. Is so Spurs signed him for £20 million. He's an English player. He's young. You're talking probably a minimum of 40, I would think, to get him out of
Yeah,
Spurs.
at least. Yeah, if we're
At
talking
least.
about 35 million for James McAtee or more,
Yeah.
you're probably thinking even more for Jed Spence.
So I think for that kind of money, for a player that I don't necessarily see as a big enough upgrade on your current options, which is an amalgamation of things, Kusanov, Nunez, Rico Lewis, whoever it may be, I just don't think that's worth going and spending that money on. And I agree with you that I think, yeah, maybe he would make City better in the very immediate short term, and maybe he has his moments. But I think Mateus Nunes has his moments, and he also has his faults. And I think Jed Spence would have similar faults. And 2 to 3 years' time, when maybe Pep isn't here and they're turning the squad over again, and the likes of Rodri are going out the door, maybe Ruben Diaz or whoever at that time, you just don't see how Jed Spence is a player that fits into any sort of City team that is looking to be as dominant as they have been in the past. So, listen, if City go out and sign him for a paltry sum, they go out and get him for 30 million, he's desperate to get out of Spurs or something, yeah, sure, he makes City slightly better in the immediate short term, but I just don't see the point in going out and getting someone who's just a tick above maybe your current options.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, in terms of the right back position, because it for me feels like the last remaining. I know, for example, people might say, "Oh well, Bernardo Silva's getting old, Kovacic is getting old," but I think City have now got a nice blend of unks versus fresh faces, of a decent squad balance. I'm not saying the squad is perfect. In a career mode style world, I might go out and get another midfielder, or I might go and add a new centre half. But in terms of, realistically, I think most of it is well balanced, probably apart from that right back position. Again, shout out to another video I've already made this summer in terms of, can City go and win the Premier League title? I think they've got a chance even with the right back situation right now. But if we're being greedy this summer, if we're talking about sort of rebuild, not refurb, so to speak, the right back position is probably still somewhere that you're looking at City saying, yeah, go out, make a signing. For me, right now, unless there's a change to the Livramento situation and he starts angling for a move and Newcastle sort of get twitchy feet and he doesn't sign the contract, whatever, I just don't see what levers City will be able to pull with the names that are available in the market to make it happen. Meaning, probably looking at Rico Lewis, Mateus Nunes, and then maybe some of Akanji and Kusanov.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think City would rather spend a season with the options that they have now and make it work than go out and splash some money on a player that they don't see as the guy. I think they're gonna keep their coffers full until Livramento is available, or maybe by this time next summer or this time in January. Maybe there's someone available that they see, okay, this is the guy that we want to lock down for 5 to 7 years. Then they go out and spend it. But I don't think that right back position is. It is, I think, the final remaining hole in the squad, but that hole isn't big enough to derail an entire season. We talked about this a little bit on some of the last few episodes of the podcast this past season. I look at Mateus Nunes very much as an Alexander Zinchenko style player, that in a functioning team, it's absolutely fine to have Alexander Zinchenko as your first choice left back because he gives you moments. Yeah, there's some faults to him, and there's moments where you might get a little boneheaded decision or whatever. But in a fully functioning team, you're not stressed about going and spending money to replace Alexander Zinchenko. I think you stick Mateus Nunes in 2019 City, 2020 City, he's the same player as Alexander Zinchenko, essentially. So I think there's no major rush to go out and panic buy, essentially, to cover that right back hole. And I do think Jed Spence would feel a little bit like a panic buy.
Yeah, I think that term panic buy is definitely worth mentioning, especially when you look at one or two of the signings City have made in recent years, maybe towards the end of the cheeky Bergestein era. Calvin Phillips springs to mind. I'm not necessarily saying that's a panic buy, but it was obviously a wrong buy, and there's maybe one or two others in there as well. A couple more questions. Should be able to sort of rattle through these. This one comes from Rocking Gravy. Favourite City kit of all time and favourite kit from any other club of all time?
The City kit is very easy for me. My favorite City kit of all time is the 97-98 away kit. It is the Kappa brother kit with white chest, dark, navy blue sleeves and shoulders, and then brother written in a red stripe across the chest. If you just Google 1997-98 Man City away kit, it's very obvious. You'll know the one. Everyone knows the one. For me, that's the best City kit of all time.
I've got that. I've got an original of that. It's absolutely
unreal,
delightful. I mean, that Kappa era is stunning, isn't it? It's weird how we've never seen a remake of that.
Yeah, I suppose it will come up eventually. Now that the godforsaken Puma is in for another 5 years, I believe it is. And they have started to do a bit more remakes of the classics. I could see it being remade. I mean, so I suppose 2 years from now will be the 30-year anniversary of that kit, if my math is serving me correct.
Yeah.
Or is it, the 30-year anniversary of that kit? I just don't know if I think Puma have harped more on remaking kits that have moments attached to them, not just for being sick kits.
Shame. This isn't necessarily my favourite of all time, but I feel like it's maybe the most underrated of all time. Apart from any old school City heads will know that first advice sponsor. It wasn't like we had sponsors nowadays which are printed on it. It was in like the weirdest material you could imagine. It was like, this sounds disgusting, it was crusty. It was like almost embossed off the shirt, and it was, I'm not selling it at all, but anyway, just in terms of, I think a red and black, obviously City's, one of their sort of all-time away kit designs being the red and black stripes. I feel like that did it really nice. I'm not necessarily a massive V-neck fan, but with the white, I feel like it works well.
Yeah, I do. I was looking at that era, and the Reebok era was just bizarre because you had
Yeah.
some of the worst home kits to ever exist, but a lot of the away and third kits were actually quite nice. One thing I dislike about that kit, and it's coming up again this Premier League season, I think it's the latest Newcastle kit. That is a nice kit. I hate when badges are in that,
Oh, do
like
you?
they
Oh,
put that like
interesting.
outline badge thing. Yeah, I don't like those at all.
Interesting. I
Personal,
think
just a little personal
yeah,
quirk.
for some badges, maybe the more busier ones, it possibly helps it in my opinion. But obviously, I don't think it would work with the City kit. I mean, you're not beating this, are you?
No,
For a modern kit,
it's
anyway.
just yeah. That's
By the way, how
is that the kit of
send
this generation?
is
Like,
that more importantly, is that Zinchenko?
oh yeah,
That looks so weird.
we sure
That's
it's not
bizarre.
Mateus Nunes?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I
Cafunas.
suppose. Did he went after?
He's that season because we
Yeah,
he
he
gave
went
the
in that
ball
summer.
away. Was it the at Arsenal when they played Arsenal played? No, he would have been playing for Arsenal when Arsenal played Liverpool towards the end of the title race, and he
Yeah,
had a stinker and he was on the bench crying or something like that when City went on and won the league.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's weird. I think it is the kit of the generation though. That
It is.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's the kid of the
it's
Pep era, I believe.
yeah. I mean, once a treasure, really, isn't it?
Yep.
Absolutely stunning.
Yep. I never, ever, 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 ever buy new kits. I do have that kit from that season. Like, bought it that season.
Yeah, I've got two, I think, which probably says a lot. Sweet. I've not got any pictures for favourite non-City kits of all time. For me, anything Boca Juniors. One, maybe not anything, because there's been some, some shockers, but I think that's a colour scheme that works really well. Bohemian FC, the Guinness kit from this season, I think is probably going to be one of my favourite ones.
Basically everything they've released in the last year. The
Literally, yeah.
Fontaine's DC kit, the Oasis kit, they've all been great.
They've all been great.
I've got one.
Go on. Go on.
I think it's the best kit of all time, and I won't hear any. It's kind of a rogue one. I won't hear any arguments. I think it's the best kit of all time. Napoli 91-92 away kit. It's hard to
Interesting.
explain. You've got to Google. It's white with like shards of light blue glass kind of on the shoulders. Maradona wore it. Gianfranco Zola wore it. Google 91-92 Napoli away kit. There it is. Absolutely
That's a banger.
insane.
Yeah.
You
I
picture
mean,
Maradona playing in Naples in
yeah.
that kit, and that is just like, that is
Well, he wouldn't have been
football.
playing in Naples because it's the away kit. So, like,
True.
Palermo or
Yes.
Roma or Pisa or whatever. But I
But
know
that's just
exactly what
like,
you mean.
that is football to me, that image.
Nice. Yeah, stunning. Sweet. Last question, and it's back to the football before we wrap it up. Lit hike? Lit hike? Lit hike. You like a lit hike.
I do, yeah.
Do you actually think we have any chance of winning silverware this season? Adam, I'll pass this one over to you because, again, final shout out for another video you guys should go and watch. The last one on this channel, Are Man City ready to win the Premier League title? I shared my opinion. The floor is yours.
Absolutely, they have a chance of winning silverware this season. I think a lot of it hinges on how much Pep leans into his new signings or how much he leans into the unks and all that kind of stuff. If we get to the opening day of the Premier League season and it's Manuel Akanji at right back and Ilkay Gundogan and Mateo Kovacic in midfield with Rodri and
Can
Tijani
I throw the
Reinders.
tiniest caveat in here?
Yes.
I don't think it's, well, maybe it is the first few games before the international break because there's a couple. I think it's after the international break because start of the season, sometimes you don't have the players fit, blah, blah, but I get exactly what you're saying. I think if it's similar to what we saw at the back end of last season, 10 games in, woof. But if it's not,
If the players that play the key minutes this season are Tijani Reinders, Omar Marmoush,
Phil Foden, he's got to play a lot.
Phil
if City gonna
Phil
do anything.
Foden. I think the biggest one for me is what happens with the midfield. If your settled midfield is, or at least your two players in midfield that are always there, are Tijani Reinders and Rodri, and again, the caveat of what Rodri comes back, then I think everything else flows from there. If Tijani Reinders is in a dogfight for minutes with Ilkay Gundogan and Mateo Kovacic or whatever, I think we have a different story on our hands. But if my image of what City's best 11 is plays the key minutes, and I'm not saying I know better than Pep in any way, shape, or form, but I think there is a
There are plenty of people who do, to be fair, so you won't be new.
There is a set of 11 to 14, 15 players at City right now that absolutely can win multiple pieces of silverware this season. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, Liverpool, people saying they've won the transfer market. How often does a team that win the transfer market actually go on to have the season that you expect them to? Very rarely. They've got a lot of new players to bed in. Arsenal, I actually think, for me, I would consider them as my title favourites. I just think they've got a really, for once, for a first time in a long time, I think they've got a very deep and balanced squad. For them, it's probably more, have they got the minerals? Have they got the mentality to go out and do it? A lot of pressure. Arsenal simply have to deliver one of the big two trophies this season, I feel like, or, curtains, Mikel. Maybe if they get an FA Cup and, run whoever close in the league, whatever. But, silverware has to be delivered there. Chelsea, I think, rather counterproductively, them winning the Club World Cup, having had a really poor run to the final in terms of the teams they played, and then obviously beat what I felt like was a tired PSG. I think that could be counterproductive in terms of their expectations, because they kind of didn't have any eyes on them, and they were sort of going about the business nicely towards the end of last season, got back into the Champions League. They are now, like it or not, world champions. That brings about its own pressure. I feel like City could possibly, for the first time in a long time, be a little bit of an underdog. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I think they're going to go on and win the Premier League title. There's cups there, there's Champions Leagues there. Is the state of European football right now super strong? Have Real Madrid improved that much? Possibly not. Can PSG maintain what they did last season? Because don't forget, in January time, City were 2-0 up against them, and PSG were about to go out of the Champions League. From that point on, obviously, they battered everyone. But is that just the purple patch? Are Liverpool going to click? Are Barcelona going to be that much better? Is Marcus Rashford moving the needle for them? I don't know. So I feel like absolutely City can win silverware this season, because maybe it can, but it simply cannot, I don't think, be as bad as it was last year, just because of all of the factors that were playing into it. Injuries, mentality, players coming towards the end of the sort of the cycle, Guardiola being blindsided, coaching staff not pushing it. It was the perfect or the unperfect storm, if you like. Whereas I think there's been that much rotation now, it feels fresh.
Yeah, and if you get to, let's say we start the season and we do see, a sort of less desirable lineup. We see more of the unks and all of that kind of stuff, the things that a lot of people going into the season are fearing. The difference this season is if you get to game 10, you get to game 5, and it's not working all that much, you have Ryan Cherky, Tijani Reinders, all these players to call on, whereas last year it was maybe James McAtee makes a difference, maybe Nico O'Reilly makes a difference, and you were forced into sticking with those players last season, whereas this season you do have the options of, okay, it really isn't working with the Unks, or Akanji at right back really isn't working. Let's stick Kusanov out there because now we don't have this obligation for his appearance bonus. We can actually start to play him again. Allegedly. So, yeah, I am going into this season not with the expectation of winning a Premier League, winning a Champions League, but with the feeling of if we get 10 games into the season, into the Premier League season, and they've picked up 25 points from 30, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's absolutely understandable. Like that, this set of players, this manager, the money that I think it's up to £275 million since January spent now that the Trafford deal has gone through. So, yeah, I don't think I have the expectation of winning silverware, but I won't have a shred of surprise in my body if we get to Christmas and they're 5 points clear at the top.
Or even 5 points off the top, but in a good way. Do you know what I am? Excited for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it could be, whatever this season returns, I think at points it's going to be really exciting. I think there'll be times where maybe it doesn't click, and as we know, the rational people of the Manchester City fan base, I'm sure, will react totally normally to that one. But I think there's going to be times where and my early prediction for this season, it's not a hot take as such, but I think there'll be several games this season, maybe similar to 2017-18, where, especially at home, maybe against lower teams who traditionally park the bus, but with the players City have got, will maybe find a little bit more space. I think City could score a lot of goals this season. 2019-20 was, before last season, regarded as one of Guardiola's worst. They finished the league as top goal scorers. I feel like we could be seeing a sort of a handbrakes off City in some ways. Pep Blinders helps with that, of course. Colo Touré coming in. So yeah, exciting.